Hello, everyone. We are live. My name is Sam. I am here with a wonderful podcast for you. We're going to do some great post-game interviews with some of the people, the minds behind Golden Gates. If you aren't familiar with me, I am one of the hosts of Survivor at IU. I'm here to ascend, maybe not be the Omni, but I'm going to be trying my hardest to get myself through those Golden Gates. I am joined here today by Ganesh themselves, someone who never forgets. It is Jason Porter. Jason, how are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming out. And of course, it would not be a production interview if we didn't have the creator, Mr. Gates himself. It is Kyle. Kyle, how are you doing?
Hello, doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just want to say I have so much love for this season, the way that it's edited, the way that it's produced, the cast, and everything that has come together. It has just made a great series, and I'm so excited that I have this opportunity to interview you and to be able to talk about this production that you put on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk. I haven't done a podcast since before the season started, just to talk about what it was and get people interested. I'm trying to share the live right now.
You're all good. One of the things I wanted to talk about before we jump directly into the season was, how did you sort of come up with this format? Because I've seen a lot of people compared it to Big Brother in the comments section. There's mixes of Survivor. There's all these different Big Brother over the top, these elements that come into it. But how did you sort of refine and define how you wanted to do this Golden Gates format?
So I've been a huge fan of reality shows, obviously. Like, my family watched Survivor season 1, and then it just went from there. And I hosted my own Big Brother game in high school, and then tried to host a Big Brother game in college, but people were too busy with college, so that didn't work out. And then I played Jason's game that he hosted back in 2018, Big Brother Columbus season 6. And I lived in Texas at the time. We talked every day, started out just talking about the game, and then we just became really good friends. And in 2019, I was just hanging out, and then I went home, drank a little, went to bed, and then I was like half asleep, but half dreaming. I just like came up with this weird concept that revolved around my last name, the Golden Gates. And most of it was exactly what the game is, but there was definitely a few refinements. I woke up and I like texted it all down, and then the next morning, noon, I woke up at noon probably and texted Jason and our other friend Tim, and I was just like, okay, so I came up with this. I was never planning on hosting my own game at all. It just like, I thought of it and I just had to text. Jason came up with the word Omni, a few other random things was thrown down. I don't remember exactly what was tweaked, but in my dream, the reason I came up with these rules is it's things that I don't love about other shows. So I've never liked backdoors in Big Brother. It's some people's strategy. It's valid if there's a big target, it makes sense sometimes. But I personally don't think it would ever do it if I ever won an HOH. What I came up with that is, the nominees play a competition, one of them will win. And the people in limbo, one of them will win. And no one can ever say that they were backdoored because they got a chance to play the competition. Even if you're dragged. The drag, I think, came from Big Brother Columbus season 7. They came up with this genius idea called a Jade Power Veto. And that person who used it also got to replace. So it was slightly different, but they got themselves on the block and got to replace them on the block. The BB Cole team came up with that all by themselves. Another thing is, in Big Brother, 3 nominees is the stupidest twist ever, because one person just will be forgotten about, and then it'll be between 2 people. The third nominee just gets 0 votes every time. So I was like, how do you mess that up? Flip it around. Votes to save instead. Also, it's just a power versus safety dynamic. You either have safety and are up in the gates, or you have the power to vote. Yes, the Omni gets the power to like nominate, but sometimes that doesn't even work out in their favor. So those are the 3 main things, and then the rest I just kind of flipped. Is there anything that I missed?
No, I mean, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, When I would say the other big thing that we had talked about when we were going through like our texting, does this idea work? What does work? What doesn't work? Like Kyle said, so much of it is like, what do you hate seeing in Big Brother, and how do you flip that on its head? I think the only other one that you missed was we hate how at the end you have 1 or 2 minutes maybe to pitch your entire game to a jury. And so how do you adjust that? And I think that's sort of what went into this decision of, well, what if they have their entire game to pitch their game to the jury by letting the players talk to the jury? It sounds crazy, like, oh, you can't have the players still in the game talking to the jury. Well, why not though? So like we sort of wanted to keep the people in the gates who were raptured. One of the benefits of going up to the gates is being able to pitch your game to them throughout the duration of the game, so that when the jury does vote on a winner, they've had so much more face time rather than a 2-minute, here's what I did all game, please vote for me.
In addition, this is an LRG, so where people are paying to play. If you get out first, I've been there where I'm out first. They let you hang around, but you can't talk to anybody. So you're just like awkwardly watching, not quite production, not quite a player. I figured it would be very good if someone who got out early could still have an effect on the game. They could just sit back and relax if they want, but they can also just talk to the people who come upstairs. So I think it's a really, really good concept for an LRG. And the goal of an LRG is to have fun. No one's making any money. So we want everyone to have as good of a time as possible.
I really appreciate the format and the way that you sort of phrase that, because I want to talk about specifically the jury, and that one of the meta struggles that you get when hosting LRGs is that, yeah, people paid $250, $300, I don't know what your specific price was, to come out here and to play this game and to play this format, and they were promised 3 days of nonstop fun. And if you get eliminated first, not only it's stab in the heart, but then you just got to sit around and do nothing if you're part of the jury. So the way that you not only structured that battle back in a spot that I find fair, because I know there's a lot of games out there, not throwing shade, but they do battle backs at like the final 6. And it's not really like, to a gameplay perspective, not the greatest thing. I understand the struggle though, but doing it, I think you did it at the right spot, like right at the end of day 1. And you had a good amount of jury talk. And what I think when I sort of dissect and I see a format, my first thought is, how can I break it? What's the strategy? And I thought about it for a while, and I couldn't find anything that was necessarily there that was, hey, like Big Brother has the backdoor, Survivor has like the idols and the pagongings. There are ways to definitively play game after game after game. And I couldn't find any specific way to beat your format yet. Time will tell if there's going to be many Lydias or people playing like Trevor in the future. But I'm very excited to see how the series is going to go and if there's any twists going on. The only thing I could possibly think of was that you'd be at a huge disadvantage if you were not winning competitions. And I was like, Lydia, like early on, I was like, Lydia hasn't done much in the competition realm and being saved or winning Ami. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to make it to episode 12, and Sedona hasn't seen her in a week. But it seemed somewhere around the episode where Trevor and Lydia strike a deal that they get to talk after the episode after everything's done filming for the day. So maybe that's where it's sort of cooled off, even though you're not supposed to talk about gameplay or whatever is going on there. So let's talk a little bit about casting. So we know a lot of casting, a lot of work goes into selecting people, and it seems you got a really great, a really vibrant cast. How did you sort of decide on these people to pick and put into the season, saying, hey, this is going to make the best? Was it the best TV product? Was it these are the gamers? What was the sort of thought process?
I mean, this first season, there wasn't many applicants. It's hard to apply to a game where you have nothing to go off of. The only thing people had to go off of, and multiple people said they applied just because of my stop motion animation I made in 2019 with cute little animals like going at it and playing the rules. 3 people from the season applied in 2019, and they all made the final 4. Oddly, I guess they were thinking about it the whole time. I guess for the 4 years they were like, "What's my strategy?" I don't know.
Who was the odd one out?
Lydia. Yeah. So Trevor and Javen, like I think they applied. Dresden did drop out. And then reapply, and then we're like, of course you can come back. But the rest of like the casting, I mean, as a season 1 cast does, sometimes it's very hard, and we pushed a lot of. May was very, very good at reaching out.
Yeah, because like Kyle said, I mean, we really didn't have as many applicants as we were hoping to have. Like, obviously, we would have tried to have an even, like gender split and make it as diverse as possible. But I mean, when you don't even have enough women applying to make it half the cast, you kind of just have to take what you get. But I'm thinking that with season 1, having the reach that it did, for season 2, we can really, fix that this time around.
Definitely going to get a bump in applications. Trust. I believe in it. Going in, I think, I don't know if I am allowed to say, I said that my winner at the preseason was Nate. Did either of you have people you were like, these are going to go far? Were the people you were particularly impressed that like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect them to make it past episode 2?
Nate was my winner's pick as well.
I don't think I had a winner pick, just because, like you said, this format's so weird that I didn't know if a really strong alliance would be able to fare well or not, because like Kyle mentioned, we used to run Big Brother Columbus back in like 2000 teens, and we had a number of seasons where big alliances came in and just steamrolled. And so we were hoping that wouldn't happen, but really, until you've seen it play out once, you don't know whether or not that's a viable strategy or not. And I would say we had sort of an equivalent of that in this game, where we had a pretty big alliance of people who either kind of knew each other or knew of each other from other games. But I think the format proves that that doesn't necessarily mean you can steamroll, because like Kyle said before, the biggest thing with this game is the drag. So even if you have an alliance and you put up 3 people outside that alliance, one of those 3 people is going away, and another one can pull anyone they want in, someone from your alliance. And if people know about the alliance, all it takes is the greater group to know about that, and that person in the alliance is gone.
Yeah. There were a lot of alliances built on very strong foundations, very like good social game and good strategic prowess from everyone in. For example, people who were sitting on the couch at a certain time. But it still baffles me that even up to Final Tribal, people were like, we were in the couch alliance. What?
My favorite fact about that is everyone has a different say of how many people were in this alliance, but if you take everyone who's in that photo during the edit of the couch alliance, every single one of them went home before the 5 people who were not in that photo. None of the top 5 were in the 10-person couch alliance.
Yeah, the couch alliance ended up being a death sentence.
It was a curse. The couch curse.
I'm trying to find. Yeah, I got the episode pulled up. I can't exactly find it, but I'm not too worried about it.
Well, but even at the final round table, I guess we'll call it, Mark says to Lydia, from the start of our couch alliance to seeing you now, you've played masterfully. But if you go back to episode 1, Lydia's not even in the group that started the couch alliance. So they could not agree on who was in it, who wasn't. It was a mess, but very, very funny.
In my mind, the couch alliance is everyone who's sitting on the couch at the first nomination. So everyone except for John V. So in a way, they all won.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this first episode. When I design competition, I'm sure when you design competitions, you also think, is someone going to break it? They're going to see through it. This puzzle is easy. This is way too hard. How do you sort of balance it so that it's fair to everyone? You said in the video that whoever grabbed the thing, you probably guessed that you get to start the infection chain. Did you immediately like, oh my gosh, they're going to know it's a trick, nobody's going to pick it up? Or were you like, nobody's going to have any idea? Because as a viewer, I was like, this isn't obvious at all. But I also think as a host, I'm like, how did they not see that coming?
Well, so we have a bit of a history with that competition, because in season 6 of Big Brother Columbus that Kyle played, that was our first head of household competition, and we did the exact same thing. So I think that when we kind of figured out that would be a really great first Omni, we assumed that people maybe knew, all right, we're about to play the first competition. Production just asked me to hand them something. This seems like a trick, but I don't think anybody actually thought it was anything.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to say it was my acting, So in BB Cole, the person who answered the cell phone actually got safety for the week, and so if they knew about that, they might have gone to go grab it and think they got safe, but no, they don't get safety. They just have to start the chain.
Yeah,
Javen and Dresden were the ones that Javen was about to touch it, but then Dresden beat him to it.
And it's a really innocuous way to have you have to pick somebody to be the first person to have, the bug that you pass on. So asking someone to hand you something, I mean, honestly, I feel like we'd be able to get away with it again in a second season. Someone's going to do it. Even if they watched it, someone's going to forget and they're going to hand it to you.
It's all fun and games until someone screams, "Don't touch it, don't touch it." And then you're sitting there and it's hour 2 and Kyle, you're pleading, you're like, "Please, someone."
Actually, that would be very funny to do the exact same thing. Ask someone to hand you something, and then when they do, be like, "All right, that had nothing to do with anything. Now we're going to play the real combat." Okay. Just see who does it.
The Gold Gates has a 16th player, and it is the Fishbowl of Fate. Anytime that something like that happens, I will pull out the Fishbowl of Fate. I love a little bit of randomization, and especially if it's because people aren't making a move. It's kind of like rocks as a punishment. It's like the Fishbowl of Fate will be your punishment if no one does anything. Either take the game in your own hands or it'll be randomized.
It's sort of like the traffic cone from Big Brother. Well, we see John V win this comp, and I think you said that it's not a good thing to get the BB bug first. I feel like it almost gives you safety in that you can talk to people, and people are going to want to make deals with the first guy more than anyone else. Also, we saw a lot of people volunteering to get kicked out, especially even up to like 4th or 5th person that was getting it. We know Trevor didn't like it when he got it because he was labeled a gamer.
A gamer.
My gosh, who was that? Was that Becca who said that? Who was that?
Oh yeah, it kicked off an entire one-sided rivalry from Trevor to Becca.
A lot of iconic things happened that very first challenge. The Bella.
Yeah.
The Couch Alliance.
Yeah, Sedona calls Becca Bella, which leads to her becoming Dark Bella later in the season.
So John V wins this trial, and he puts up Charlie, Mira, and Sedona. And we get to play, I believe this week the Power of Protection was first, because I know it switches a couple of times throughout the season.
It was dark outside, so we didn't want it to get darker, so we went with the protection first. Yeah.
Okay. So it was Ball Bashers, which that was bocce. And it's this long tournament of people throwing the balls, and I think it was like played in rounds, but I think only one was shown. How physically long did that take? Because I know, like, what was it, 14 people competing in it? It looked like it took forever.
11 players, 10 rounds. So it was elimination style, randomization for the first 2, and then they got to pick who.
Big Brother Showdown.
It took a little bit. It wasn't our longest by far, but
and quite a bit of that was edited out in the episodes because it was already a long episode. And so I think, how many balls did each person have, Kyle? 6?
4.
Yeah, so everyone did 4 throws, but I think I ended up just using
the important ones
to, which actually received points.
No one wants to watch an hour-long competition anyway.
And by the way, I just because I'm seeing it on my screen, I enjoyed the cardboard Omni, the keyhole that everyone stuck the comically small keys. We need a comically large one for next season.
My biggest thing I want for season 2 is like an actual made of wood one of those.
Yeah, that was a last minute addition. Also, I thought it would hang on the wall, which is why the back is not spray painted.
I was somewhat disappointed because the whole season I was like, okay, we keep getting all these keys, we get all these locks, we see them do this every episode. I'm waiting for like the final challenge or the final Omni or the final Power of Protection. It's gonna be something like they have to run, they have to find a key, like unlock a code, some trivia. And then we got the button, which the button was a cool comp. Or whatever.
The duel.
It was part of the duel. I think it was part of Trials and Tribulations in the trivia.
Buzzer. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, where are the locks and keys coming in? This is going to be part of something. So it's season 2. We're always.
Yeah, write that down.
And I know it, you know it, but we get the I think Jimmy Kimmel is a Jimmy Fallon comp.
Jimmy Fallon.
Of what's in the box.
I mix them
Do
up. Yeah.
you do
That
you
was
think
definitely-
that I think what's it? Sedona's police interrogation? Was she had a history of like telling who lied?
Her being trained how to lie. I don't know who trained her. It's very ambiguous where she like learned how to lie. But yeah, I like the headcanon that it was some sort of like police academy or some tribe out in the woods that taught her the ways.
I wish I could show this screenshot, but you can see Charlie lying about it, and he's got the biggest smirk on his face ever.
Oh yeah. I think he was just really nervous that first round.
You did a good job of putting wacky enough things in there that it wasn't like, oh, it's a sticky note. I was glad that it was produced well.
Dollar store. It was great. I just went and picked 20 different items, put them together. And then I think it was Jason's idea to have one extremely simple item.
Oh, the bow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was a lie to be a pineapple sticker. And Mira did really good with that laugh. She was like, oh, the funny story. And she just went on to lie. It was pretty good. I was really happy with how that comp played out.
Well, we have Sedona win it, which drags down Noah. Did you know during the casting in the preseason about Noah and how he had a history of getting out early? Or
well, we didn't know Noah until day of.
Yeah, Noah.
Someone dropped out from sickness.
We had a dropout the morning of the game, and unfortunately, we didn't have an easy way to sort of revise the game with only 14. So we had to mad dash to find a replacement in the hours leading up to the game. And May, she the devil from production, was friends with Noah, told him about it, and he volunteered to pretty much immediately drive up from Wheeling, West Virginia, and he was our last spot. Which at the time I was heartbroken that he went home first, because I was like, dude, you did us such a solid by driving up day of and then going home first. But I felt less bad about that as the season went on.
I just got, now that you said it, she the devil. I've always just been saying Sheila. I get now it's a pun.
They're both puns, like Sheila Devil, She Devil, and Archie Angel, Archangel.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick myself forever on that one. Very much in my eyes, the villainous edit going to Noah there, and that was the end of day one, right?
No, we had three full game rounds,
and a buyback.
Yeah, night one ends about halfway through episode 4.
Okay,
which is wild.
All right. Well, we get the competition that now that Noah's gone, we get the competition that is like what I think the most iconic one of all of them. We not that it peaked, but we got to our high point very early in the competitions of Fish TV. Is it I forget, because this was trivia too. It was Real Housewives of Golden Gates, or is it of Hell? Yes, of Golden Gates. And at first, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even notice. I thought it was the same person 10 times. I thought it was just Jason 10 times. I was like, oh, that's funny. They edited him in. And then only after I found Kyle's Facebook and I looked him up, I found the photo of everyone dressed up. And so who was responsible for scripting and coming up with these ideas?
So Fish TV is one of the major traditions we had from Big Brother Columbus that we wanted to bring over to Golden Gates, because when we ended Big Brother Columbus, we kind of wanted to put all of the power into making Golden Gates as good as it could possibly be. So in season 3 of Big Brother Columbus, we decided to do a video comp where we just filmed the skit, showed it to the house guests, and then asked them questions about it. We ended up doing it for every single season of Big Brother Columbus after that. So when we kind of shifted to Golden Gates, we were like, that would be a really good comp to bring in to sort of keep that tradition going. But it's also really fun for us to sort of present something that we worked on. I think it's a really fun for the house guests to see something that we put together. And I was really happy with how it went. But we actually had a writer's room meeting with all of the production, me, Kyle, and May, and then the extras that we had. And we spent a whole day just kind of writing jokes. We knew that it was going to be a Real Housewives skit, so we watched clips from the show and just sort of said, all right, let's say you have all of these gods from various, religions or stories, and pretend like they're all drunk housewives. What would they say to each other? What kind of fights would they get into? And we just sort of wrote a loose script and it, performed it, but also did a lot of improv. And I think it turned out pretty good.
It was 8 hours of fun, and we did what was on our paper and a lot more, and Jason edited it all.
We will need, if Golden Gates doesn't make it past season 2, we're going to need a whole season of Real Housewives.
We already have ideas for season 2 sketch. So.
Yeah, Fish TV is not going anywhere. We'll definitely make that a continued tradition.
I'm looking forward to Below Deck Golden Gates.
Oh my God. That is my favorite Bravo show.
So that is won by Becca. And we do the blind and puzzled competition after. Let me see if I can pull that up. That was the blindfolded, or no, you did the POR first, right?
Mm-hmm.
For this episode?
Oh yeah, we flipped them that week. I think it's the spelling quilt one.
Yeah.
So it starts off with Rainbow Dash, which is
yeah.
Which is the marbles. Where did you get that pegboard from? Because it looked homemade, right?
Another classic.
It was also from Big Brother Columbus. We built that for season 4 or 5, I think, and then it's great. It's it's really, really sturdy and it's color coded and you have the marbles. So we're like, let's bring it into Golden Gates.
All right, I'm adding this. I'm slowly building up a list of things that I should study for when I eventually am able to play your game.
Just that's really cool, yeah.
So there's that, and one of the other, because there's no good time to talk about this, but one of the things about making LRGs that I'm sure you've both realized is that one of the tough parts of it is that you have to make so many competitions for Big Brother games and games that have more than 2 or 3 comps and like the challenge and all that. So to go on and to make your own format that is requiring 2 to 3 each cycle and has to work for either like a group of 15 or a group of 7 or a group of 2 or a group of 6, all these different permutations that you could get there. You did a great job of putting together competitions that are high quality and good to the camera and entertaining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So blind and puzzle, or not blind puzzles, but Rainbow Dash is won by Javen and Sedona, and then we get the blind and puzzled comp. It was random draw. It was Fishbowl, the 16th house guest for the who is partnered with who, right?
Yeah, that was a interesting idea. There was a small potential that maybe what your partner would throw it for the team. That didn't seem to happen, but it was another strategic thing, just potential put in there.
Yeah. Everyone had slightly different puzzles, but I think when you're blindfolded, it didn't matter at all. I think we had a couple people yelling at each other during it.
There's definitely a lot of raising voices.
One of my favorites is that Dresden and John V's trying to put together the little airplane, and he's like, "You gonna tell me what to do?" He's like, "Your left," and he goes, "Your other left."
Yeah, that comp was just like a cacophony of sound of everybody speaking at once. Did not envy them.
Did you beta test that comp? And I'm interested how long it took if you did.
May and Jason tested it.
That's right.
It didn't take more than 2 minutes, I think.
We were pretty quick, but we also didn't have 10 other people shouting.
And there was only one of them.
Well, that was a really fun comp. And then we see.
Did you play that in a game, Kyle? Where did you get? Because you thought of adding that one, right?
Yeah, I bought that back in 2019. I don't remember. I've never seen it fully. I mean, I thought of because it's a round where there was an even amount of people, I think, and there was 2 winners. I thought it would be cool to do a duos challenge. Yeah, and then I just thought of blindfolded puzzles are common, but I've never seen done like 5 teams.
Yeah, that was good.
We see Sedona go home with only John V's vote to save, which I think was like a hinky vote to totally mess with the house, sure. Right?
Yeah, because someone threw a hinky vote week 1. Dresden, I think, voted for Noah week 1 and
Yeah.
said, let's make it a messy season.
Mhm.
And then John V says, oh, well, let's keep the Hinkie vote train going, and throws a vote on Sedona, which does, I think in episode 3, there's a scene with JoJo in the closet. And he's like, who's casting all these Hinkie votes? But it was 2 different people at that point.
I was going to ask if that ever came of anything, because I remember it was like a big moment for John V, and then it didn't ever seem to progress past episode 2. I know he's like
stick in people's like the back of people's heads, but it doesn't always necessarily make decisions for people. It's just like
at best you get to use it at FTC.
yeah,
good.
or it breaks the trust of the group as a whole slightly.
Yeah.
So we get the episode 3. It's the golden ratio, which is the Gaspionage comp, if you know it. Very similar to some of the Jackbox games.
That was a competition I used before I knew what Gaspionage was, back in 2011 in my high school game that my mom came up with because I was playing. So it was like one of the fun ones that would be easy to translate into a big group of people. So we're like, oh, let's do it early on.
I want to ask, so I can add this to my database of things to study before the season. But where did you get these? Where did you get the stats from? Because some of them seemed a little odd.
It took a while to find like Gaspionage scores, but someone kept track of some Gaspionage when they were playing and put it in a list. And there was a lot of like bad ones that I had to sift through, and these were the best 15 I could find.
I just want to make sure we haven't passed it. You said earlier that the ring toss was not as long, or the bocce comp was not as long as some of the other ones. What was the longest comp?
Oh my gosh!
In total,
was it Jenga in episode 4?
I don't know about time, but like longest, absolutely horrible to watch for me was the face morph competition. Everyone, I don't think we had a timer. We just waited until they pressed submit.
I think you're right. We unfortunately should have had a time limit, but didn't. And I think there was 8 people playing that, and it was 8 or 9, and then they all had to do it individually. But when you have a POP or POR that is individual, you have to read the instructions that many times as well. So I think we weren't anticipating that taking as long as it did, and it was like an hour and a half at least.
If we ever did it again, we would just do like a 2-minute timer, and however many points you get at 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Did you sequester everyone when they're not doing those types of comps?
2 different rooms. There was one room where no one knew what it was, and then a room of people who completed it.
It's very fun. So where were you when they had all these socialization periods? Jason, I imagine you were behind a camera, but were you...
I actually ran Diary Room this season. It was something I always really wanted to do in Big Brother Columbus, because since I'm the one that's editing the episodes, if someone else is in the Diary Room, I would be like, oh man, I really wish they asked this, or I really wish they asked that. So I was like, you know what, this time I'm going to do Diary Room. So usually for competitions, I was down on the floor helping film, but in between rounds when they were socializing or, talking game, I would run up to the diary room and start asking people questions so I could get, the footage for each round, because I knew that if we got behind on diary rooms, it would be a nightmare to catch up. And I really like to ask people questions during the round things are happening, so that we don't have to be like, hey, 4 rounds ago, you did this. Pretend like that's happening to you right now when you answer this question. So I was trying to get caught up on diary rooms, but with a 15-person cast, it's like, so hard to get everybody in there, especially because some people ramble. So I did spend most of the weekend in the DR, except when it was a rapture or a competition. I was on the floor filming.
We have the winner, Queen Lydia, saying that the ping pong competition was one of the longest ones.
That one did last a while, but it was so much fun, so it didn't drag on for me.
Oh, the ping pong po? Yeah, that took a while. It was fun though.
We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, though, and we see JoJo win first of, I believe, a 4-week immunity streak.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to Charlie very soon, but he puts up Jay Van Mira and Trevor. Is there any worry in your head? Because again, when I do casting and I do my gameplay, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the group, and then you're like, okay, ease in. These are how the people are playing the game, and especially for a new format. are you like, oh my gosh, Javen and the Mira and the same people are going up every single week? Do you think like, do you know that you have a good season on your hand, or is it still there that anxiety that something could be going wrong or that it's going to be a steamroll while it's happening?
There was a lot of ups and downs about our feelings about the season. I think it was going really well, and then to nobody's fault. It's just when you have one person win 3 Omnis in a row, you're worried that it's going to turn out bad. But actually, I think it ended up being really, really good for the season as a whole.
I fully agree. I think it's really a testament to how strong like Golden Gates works as a concept, that even if you do have someone that's steamrolling and bulldozing, like it doesn't mean they get what they want, because part of the storyline of this season, which is so great, is Charlie wins 3 Omnis in a row. In the moment, we were like, oh man, is this boring? Like, is this going to be boring to watch at home? But all 3 of Charlie's Omnis, none of his targets go home. The person who's dragged goes home every round. And that in turn makes it really, I think, interesting, because that's where you sort of learn the lesson that Omni isn't as powerful as you think it is.
It's part of that you lose the vote and that you don't have any power past the first part. So whatever alliance it was, whether it was the couch or the gamers or the rookies, they seem to have figured out how to dethrone him. We go to the golden dice competition, or the golden word. I don't know why. Or no, yeah, it's golden word first.
Round 3 is the golden round.
Right. All 3 comps have golden in the title.
There you go. But it's the golden word. And what was the word that the Javan?
Knighton.
Knighton.
Niten.
Niten.
It's one of my favorite moments of the season.
Could have gone with knit. Could have gone with tin.
There were words in there he could have spelled.
could have thrown the balls a little bit better.
Could have thrown them all.
He was going so slow. It was so weird.
That is when people thought Javen was a mastermind throwing competitions. And Javen's good at what he's good at.
Yeah, Javen's on record saying, nope, he was just drunk and didn't know there was a time limit till the time ran out.
That's a great piece of trivia there. And he could have gotten second too. But
that's why everybody thought he threw it to not get blood on his hands, but nope, that was literally him playing at his full capacity at the time.
Very much a what's it, shotgun moment, the calculator. And we get another great competition of the golden dice, and that it's my favorite thing in the world, gambling. In that everyone has to. So you very much you can tell. This is an Airbnb, right? Or is this one of your houses? Okay, because it's pristine to the spot. And I'm like, wow, if Kyle's got this pool table and the Pac-Man machine and Galaga up in his I want to hang out with him. I want to be on season 5.
If you want to see my house, go back to Real Housewives of Golden Gates. That's my house.
We did film that there, yeah.
But a lot of people bust in a row, and a lot of people just keep on gambling. And we see, I believe, Sebastian tries to throw the comp, not really, but does, and he wins it because everyone else threw. And I think was it John V got to like 40 points and then just kept rolling.
I think it was Nate. Okay. I think it was Nate. Yeah, he rolled like 11 or 12 times. I wasn't there when they filmed that comp, but when I was editing it and going through the footage, I was like, man, you really think you can roll 11 or 12 times without hitting a 7?
The odds are 1 in 6 that you hit a 7. My strategy would have been rolling 6 times. If I make it, I'm done.
Yeah.
That was my strategy.
It's something to do with your due to hit it eventually. I know it's the most common. I like the stat of 1 in 6. Take that to my next Monopoly game. Mira gets sent home 4-3-2. Very tight vote. And this is sort of when I start thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if it does tie in the minority? And we did eventually get that cleared up with Nate. If it was it could be a 3-3 tie here. Is it that JoJo would have just gotten to choose the eliminated person, or would there be a revote if it was a 3-way tie? Or am I going to have to wait until the next season?
This season, that was the rule.
Okay.
That's all we'll say for that.
Yeah, that was the tie rule for season 1.
You can never. The tie will always be questionable.
It
And
was
that's
so.
the point of it.
I mean, it was so much fun to listen to them say over and over, we can't let it tie. We don't know what happens if it ties. We can't let it tie. We don't know what happens if it ties. So now that it's out there, you never know what's going to happen for season 2.
Well, you know the tagline of the Golden Gates. It's prepare for the unpreparable. So I'm very
sounds familiar.
We end day one with the holding steady competition, and that we get Sedona, Mira, and Noah. They come back and they're like, all right, this is their chance. And pretty quickly, relatively, Mira and Sedona drop. And I think Noah basically he goes in confessional and says, I don't need this. I'm safe for the week.
No, that was just in person.
Okay. Very bold strategy.
For sure.
There were quite a few people still in the game, so I mean, I kind of get it. It's like I won the buyback. I can either stay here for a lot longer and try to win Omni, but yeah, he's safe for the week anyway, and it's only 1 week, so why even try for it?
And he got to vote.
Yeah, that was actually I didn't even think about that. That was the smartest thing to do was drop.
They weren't told at all before. Like how soon were they told that there'd be a battle back?
We told the raptured players immediately after their rapture, just so that they weren't too discouraged and they could have something to look forward to. What we did is like we would record their final rapture in the DR so we could get the genuine like sad emotions, but then we would end each one with there is a buyback at the end of the night, just so it wasn't so doom and gloom, for them.
All right. So next time when I'm in the jury house and you don't tell me, I should just drive my car out of there immediately.
I think that kind of had something to do with it too, right, Kyle? Because
Yeah.
I think we had given them the option that if you are first out and you don't want to stay in the gates for the rest of the game, like you can go home. That's fine. It's not like quitting. It's just you don't want to stay. That's fine. But I think that by telling them a buyback was coming that night, it would dissuade anybody from leaving right away.
Yeah, we wanted everyone who got voted out day one to feel like they're still in the game, even more than just in the jury. It's just like you have a chance. So like we'd love you to stay. And then if they wanted to leave right after that, like we'd get it. But that's the thing about it. It doesn't matter how many jury members there are. People who are in like the end game, they're not just going to leave, be like, the game's almost over at that point. So we had faith that there would be enough people who want to stay, and everyone wanted to stay. So that worked out well.
Yeah, and I think it was really fun to have the entire cast together for the final thing of Friday night. That way, anybody who would come out, we all got to do one final thing. And then it kind of provided a reset for the game so that when day 2 started, the buyback was already over. It was just like race to the finish at that point.
I'm very excited for season 45 when we eventually get our first 3-way finale tie, and you have to figure out how to deal with that.
There are rules for it. So also, I mean, it wasn't in the edit, but it did show at the end. I think I'm going to clip a video of that together or something. The final 3 did vote for a winner as well, just like because the Pitts players vote. And so at the very end, there's a screenshot. Lydia voted for Trevor, and both Dresden and Trevor voted for Lydia, which means that the tiebreaker went to Trevor as a second place finisher. But there is a tiebreaker after that, even if it's still tied. But I won't reveal that.
Yeah, no, because I can't imagine that there is a universe where you won, and it's just 3 ways, and even after everyone votes, it's maybe some sort of ranked choice voting. But the odds of that happening are so substantially possible.
5 to 5 to 5.
Yeah.
Kyle's a stats guy, though. I know if there's a chance something will happen, Kyle has a plan for it.
And the other thing that I have is always write it down so that people don't think you just made it up. So if that did happen, I had it on my notebook.
You had that huge binder. Huge binder. Were there any competitions that you skipped or that like didn't make the final cut?
No skips, but there was a ton of like 5 backup comps, just like worst case scenario, something you lose an item and you can't do a competition, like backup comp. And so we had those, but nothing had to be moved around or anything.
Well, that was great stuff. We get the holding steady with the Jenga blocks, and Charlie wins it. And there's a lot of fun banter. That's the one with all the singing, right?
Oh yes, oh yes.
How is Jason, as someone you were holding a camera there? Were you trying to smirk? Were you bored with it?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was so funny because I was already thinking in my head, this is going to be really funny to edit. So after we had filmed that and everybody was singing the entire time, I could see the faces of people who were like annoyed. So I was like, all right, I got to ask that person, and that person once they're in the diary room, how awful did you think the singing was? And tell me about it so that when I edit the episode, I can cut back and forth between them singing to somebody in the diary room saying, oh my God, they won't stop singing. And I was like, that I think will be funny. And I think that we achieved that effect. I think Lydia has the best DR where she's like, I wish it was socially acceptable to tell people to just shut up. And it immediately cuts back to everyone like singing in her face again.
I think I'm watching it now, and there's a shot of May Mazersmith with her hands in her face. I don't know whether it's tired because it's the end of it, like fourth.
I feel like she
cycle.
joined in on the singing a few times. So
yeah. Even production was getting into it a little bit.
But Charlie begins his streak.
Ooh.
And based on what you saw at this point in the game, in the confessionals and what people were talking about walking around the house, did you think people perceived Charlie as someone who would be this big comp threat, or is it like impossible to tell in hindsight?
I don't think so. I mean, he hadn't won anything up till then. I think right after he won his second competition, people were probably thinking it.
I remember being really excited for Charlie when he won the first because I remember he had been the one that almost went out first. He had only played one other game before where he did go out first. So I was like, hey, the guy who was super scared about going home first, like won a comp. I'm super like jazzed for him. Not knowing it would lead to his 3-round reign of terror.
I don't think anyone could have called that coming, especially from Charlie. But hold on, I'm looking at. I got my charts all messed up.
The chances are very low that that'll ever like happen for a while. I feel like.
Well,
like 2 is realistic.
Before when Kyle and I and our friend Tim were kind of like just talking about all the different things that could potentially go into this game, I remember we had a conversation about should you be able to win Omni twice in a row, because in Big Brother you're ineligible. And I think that we kind of landed on like, honestly, because Omni isn't anywhere nearly as powerful because you remove yourself from the game and you don't vote, then yeah, like if someone wants to gun for Omni twice in a row, that's kind of on them, and it might end up biting them in the ass if they do. So I'm so glad we got to see what that looks like, that if someone does win 3 in a row, that they're safe, but like they also lose a lot of other social capital in the process.
Yeah, they lose that the voting ability, which I think is one of the most important things. But what were you thinking?
In this game, you can technically win your way to the end. The question is, will the jury vote for you if that's all you did? If you went up to the gates every week, I don't know if I would necessarily vote. Like, it just seems like bad strategy. I don't know. But you can also win 0 competitions and get to the end. So one day I think it'd be really cool to see like someone who won all of them and someone who won none of them.
There's a really good diary room from JoJo in episode, I don't know, 5 or 6, where he says that. He's like, I won Omni and then I won 3 power protections in a row. I haven't voted in like 5 weeks. And he realizes that he's missing so much of the strategic game because of that.
I think the way in Big Brother that you can comp out and make your way to the end and that you could still win, it's one, because it's a final 2 and you only have to beat 1 person as opposed to 2. But also, if you're winning the comps, you get to control who goes home, because with the head of household, you can nominate the biggest threats, and the veto, you can take down the person who might not, either yourself or the person who you think is the big threat. But with the format that's here, if you're the Omni, you can only control so much, because we see with Charlie that the replacement keeps going home. And even with if you win the power protection every single week, again, you have no power and you don't get to say, these are the things I do that deserve to win. Other than maybe being a really likable person and everyone enjoys you, even then people might not still award you their jury votes.
Yeah,
100%.
We get to the Halo Chop. I started calling them the power competitions because it was sort of a mix of both. I'm going to challenge you here because earlier in the pod, you said, I don't like the backdoors. I don't like that people don't have the chance to win. I've seen a lot of LRGs. I've played a lot of ORGs. I've done a lot of this thing. Stab or infection, or not infection, but stab and all these comps late game that involve targeting someone and taking them out. I'm not a big fan of. I don't know.
That's fair.
It's all opinion, and this was relatively early. But what did you think that everyone would go for the people who were nominated? Did you think they'd keep them in? And
I didn't know. I thought it was very interesting. I don't think it actually has anything to do with what happened, but the person who decides the person who's safe, Mark snipped Javen's angel, and Dresden won the power. The next round, Javen drags Mark, and Mark goes home. It wasn't necessarily why, but maybe it was in the back of Javen's mind to drag him. But like, I would never have snipped. So like, I would just been like a nice guy whoever wins out of those, it'd be fair game for their game. I would just focus on my safety and not attacking someone. But like, yeah, what were you gonna say, Jason?
I was just gonna say, I was surprised that the people in Limbo were cutting strings of the people in the pits because the drag down was going to happen right after that. So if it was me, I would, like you said, be cutting the other player in Limbo strings, because if you get someone out, if you're working on the people in the pits, like they could easily just drag you down in that exact same round. So I was surprised to see that they were going for each other like that.
Yeah, and like I guess you can get bullied in that game. We wanted to do a little bit of every type of thing to see what happens. It's definitely not the most like fair if you're on the bottom, but you can't have every single comp be perfectly like skill based, and we just want to do a little bit of everything. And
I think our goal with placing it there was that in case the game had been really stale up until that point and there were like alliances that were steamrolling, that competition always like brings things to the forefront, that like it gets people talking about things. So we kind of wanted to make sure there was like an early game shakeup to sort of like make people show their cards a little bit.
I totally get it. There's a ton of different stuff that goes into it. It's just, it sucks for a lot of people in it because JoJo then gets placed as this target. And I think this isn't the comp where Nate gets placed, because is this the one where, this is the one where Nate gets placed on the fridge, right?
Yeah, where Nate gets voted most likely to win the game.
But it makes for interesting television, and that's all you ask for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see Becca go here, which was a shock because I think Becca was my dark horse. I had a couple people I picked to win, John V being one of them, so big mistake. But
yeah, because Trevor's number one ally won the power to drag, and Trevor had a vendetta against Becca, and so Trevor did everything in his power to get Becca out.
Yeah. And maybe that's why he didn't get the jury votes to win. We start off episode 5 with the Weight Watchers. It is did you call it fast forward? What was it?
Yeah, it's not an Omni. It's just a fast forward competition.
Which I enjoyed this twist because it wasn't like anything I've seen before, and it condensed all of it very quickly. Very good storytelling in how it was performed, and the comp was not random, but there was a good amount of fairness in that anyone could have won that. And Charlie, who had very low guess, I think everyone had very bad guesses, right?
The answer was 340-ish, and Charlie won with 220-ish. No one went over or even close.
Yeah, I think he says in the DR in that episode, he doesn't want to throw so bad that he's at the bottom, but he wants to throw enough that he's in the middle of the pack. So he was not trying to win that at all.
I wonder if he tried, if he would have gotten really close. Probably.
But Yeah. No, if I ever won a competition, I would always say I threw it. I don't know how I won. But we see that instantly we know the noms because we already pre-decided them, which means that John V wins the Power of Redemption.
Yeah.
Javen gets to replace it, and JoJo's protected and all that. And I believe Javen drags Mark here, which is interesting because I hadn't seen Mark in any of the alliances or structures or anything like that. What do you think that Mark got picked up and sort of dragged out of the game here?
Well, it's kind of like what Javen didn't have Trevor to talk to for strategy purposes, but maybe Javen remembered that Mark snipped him in the snip challenge. Mark's number one ally was Charlie, and a lot of people liked Mark actually. Like Mark was doing pretty well with the social game. He had his Couch Alliance, which I think he was the most loyal member of the Couch Alliance. So I think he was definitely working with a lot of people, but it took him off guard. And
yeah, we don't really have it. It's hard to tell on the episode because we didn't really have people talking about it. But this round is where like sides definitely started to form, and I think that Charlie had put up Javen in the round before. Javen obviously can't drag Charlie down because Charlie's, technically the Omni this round or whatever. But I think that at that point knew that Mark was like a close ally of his.
I'll say even I think I remembered that they were close allies, but I often mixed them up when I was like writing down my notes. Something they look slightly similar.
Well,
I don't know.
Can I tell the story, Kyle?
What story?
During Jenga. So during Jenga, there was a funny moment. I edited it out of the episode, but where Mark drops his Jenga cubes and Kyle says, "Oh, Charlie's out." And Charlie's like, "What? I'm not out." He's like, "Oh, sorry, Mark's out." And Charlie's like, "Oh, I get it. All bald guys look the same, huh?"
I married a mostly bald guy. It's fine.
If you watch the new Mr. Beast 1 through 100, there's a guy who looks just like him who makes it to the end. I'm like, that might be him.
I did.
I know. Yeah, somewhere out there, Mark's trying to get the call back from Jimmy. But
I didn't know who Mr. Beast was until he said that, and I was like, he keeps talking about this Mr. Beast video, and I think it was either you or Maykyle who was like, no, it's like a huge YouTuber.
I recognized Mark.
That's
like
crazy.
I watched that video, and I was like, that's the Mr. 56 who started the 50-year-old alliance. Like,
that's
it was awesome to see him apply.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna have to start calling up Jimmy's manager and trying to grab specific people, make it a reoccurring joke that the same guy, just get whoever number 56 is. Have to pull up the wiki and then get the guy from 56 from the Squid Game, the challenge.
Oh my gosh.
But so Mark goes home there, and then immediately after, Charlie wins another one, which is the classic LRG classic, in that it's Anna Memory. And I love that in the confessional, John V goes, "Oh, everyone knows this comp. You just have to come up with an acronym. I got this. And as producers, you know that the comp's already over. He'd lost. But he's talking very confidently.
Exactly.
He's like, I walk into the backyard. This is my stuff. And then he loses.
Yeah.
I'll give John V props for that. Even when what he said didn't go his way, he was very in the DR, like not ashamed to say it again. Because like there's always people, and like I've probably done it before, that that like you don't do something, so you're not gonna like brag that it's going to happen in the DR because you don't want to look stupid. And not saying John V looked stupid, it's just like, yeah, he did really well. Like he's very good at.
Yeah,
like
John V had already lost that competition when we recorded the diary room for him talking about the competition. So I thought it was really cool of him to go in and be like, "Oh, this is so easy. There's no way I'm going to win," knowing he lost because it would make for really good TV.
He got out round one. But that's that, and then we get another. Is this the trivia one, or no? This is the face morph comp. Which, from your side, you really enjoyed.
It was long, but it was still really fun. That one was really fun to watch because they didn't see the faces till they started popping up, and their reactions to them was really funny.
when did you make these graphics? Was this preseason? Was this
well,
like during the night?
So there was AI. That's the only thing we used AI for, but we morphed the faces. But as I said, we had a last hour edition, so I had to face morph Noah with another person and then get them printed. Or
Yeah,
I had to get
There's a slideshow.
yeah. Originally, we had. I think it was JoJo with the
Yeah.
person who dropped out day of. So that's always a huge risk if you ever do anything that's like involves the players' names or faces, and then you get a dropout. So it's like, all right, well now we have to go reprint this picture of that person.
Because I meant to ask, is there like a Mira Angel somewhere in your production camp that didn't make it to that comp?
So it gave like 4 different options, and I picked the best one of them. But like some of them are really like even worse. These ones looked at least mostly human. The one with Charlie has a dog, like Bubble. I think no, there's like
I see it.
a dog angel.
Because he's mixed with someone that had a dog in their
Mira.
picture with Mira.
No, Charlie had a dog.
Gotcha.
Charlie's like dog is like right here in his profile photo.
And the AI like put a dog into the clouds. Like that wasn't us at all. It was just
kind of cute.
Yeah.
And then Javen and mine had Javen's profile photo had bubbles. It was like a Mardi Gras event that me and him went to. And then our photo had like cute little bubbles. So it was like another little hint that it was Javen if you're like detail oriented on photos and stuff.
The more I look at it, the more cursed it gets.
So Seb and Nate named their child Satan, SATN.
I mean, it fits the Golden Gates theme. But that's the cycle where we see finally John V gets sent out, and this was the very close to a fight, and the closest we get until like episode 8, I think. And that John V basically does he go to Javen and he goes, why'd you pull me down? This was the dumbest move you could do for your game. And again, with this like knowing in hindsight, and that he's basically saying, Javen, you're going home. And then John V ends up being the one taken out. How much fun was that to edit?
That is again why I will always tip my hat to John V, regardless of anything else, is that he did the best job he could trying to give us the best ending to that episode. So, I mean, I don't think we actually got his final DRs in that episode till a good couple hours after he had already been raptured. But he was laying it on so thick, saying like, I'm John B, the puppet master. I know I have the votes to stay. There is no way I'm going home this round. And and I think that's what he probably thought in the moment. But he knew that he knew that he had already been raptured when he gave us that material. So it was very fun to edit him and his allies thinking that they were totally good, because I think that it made the actual outcome a lot more surprising to the viewers.
Yeah,
that round was actually a little crazier even. But the edit just didn't come through because we didn't have enough cameras. But so Javen said, he's like, oh, I'm not going to drag you. And then Javen goes to talk to like Nate and Trevor were like the big two that were like, you should drag John because we have the votes. And then Javen's like, okay, like I'll do that. And so then he does it. And in the background, John V's like shaking his head like, no. And then they go in that thing, and then John V is like, well, what do you like? He's like, I'm gonna send you home because of that. And he's like, as long as Dresden's safe. And then he's like, okay, then I'm gonna send Dresden home. And then like Javen just like calls his bluff or whatever. And then Dresden hears word of something, and like Dresden's like screaming at John a little bit, like they're friendly, like game drama. We didn't catch that, but then Dresden like walks outside and is like, okay, John's going home. And then the votes are wild. My favorite thing that didn't make the episode as well, the plan was for Trevor to save Dresden, but they were predicting who John would save because John had to save one of them. And Trevor predicted that John would flip the vote of what he said. And so Trevor said, Javen, I'm going to save you because I think John John's going to save Dresden instead of you, like he said. And Javen's like, no, I think you should stick to the plan. And Trevor says, okay. And then Trevor does the opposite. And because of Trevor's flipped vote, predicting John's flipped vote, John still ends up going home. It's 3-3-2.
Very, very exciting stuff.
That was like impossible to catch on edit because it was just people like talking in the corner for like 3 seconds.
Millions of things going on at the same time. Yeah.
There's also the double episode. What was it? Yeah. And one thing I almost forgot was that we had the Pandora's box twist.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's also in this episode. Yeah.
Did we reveal all the boxes or was it just the one?
Yeah, in the little corner it showed all the...
Yeah, it pops up just for a split second, just so people know what the other twists were. But we didn't get a lot of... I'm kicking myself that we didn't get diary rooms of all the jury members that opened the box to talk about what each of their thing was, but we just didn't have time. But we were kind of... In the moment, we were kind of bummed because the box that got picked by Charlie was the one we were least excited about. The other 3 were all pretty big twists that we even recorded full videos for to announce that this new twist was going on with the game. And then the 4th one was just all right, you get an extra vote at the next Rapture. And then that's the one that Charlie picks, of course.
But it ended up working out so interestingly.
Absolutely.
The best thing that could have happened, that vote actually saved Charlie and it caused chaos. Because people are like, where did this extra vote come from?
Yeah, you really couldn't have written it better because it was only for the next round and it ended up being Charlie who needed it. And that vote kept him an extra round. Charlie likely would have gone home if he hadn't had that extra vote. So I'm really happy with how it turned out, even though in the moment we were a little bummed.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So we had Mira had the jury picks who was in the pits. Becca's, which I can only imagine how insane that would get there.
So actually, the pits might have been very, very similar. The jury was currently under the impression that Javen and John V were working extremely tight to be in the pits every single round and get out the third player. That clearly wasn't the case, but I think they probably would have put the 2 of them down there again. So it might have just changed one, the person who was the third, who Dresden. I think Dresden would have been safe.
That was the most wild twist, though. That is the one that I definitely. I have a feeling we might see that pop up one day. I'm just saying.
And then the others were the jury gets to vote, so there'll be 4 extra votes to save, and then
the public reveal.
Oh, the votes from that round would have just been exposed.
Yeah. All very interesting. I see it now that you say it out loud that the one of you get an extra vote to save, probably not from our entertaining of the 4.
From our production, wanting to be entertained, we were a little bummed. But again, it ended up working great because that somebody else would have gone home, or Charlie would have gone home in that next round, I believe, if he didn't have that vote. And it ended up prolonging sort of the Charlie storyline, which I was happy about.
But yeah, to say I wasn't rooting for Charlie would be a lie. Great personality, a lot of great moments from him throughout the entire season. Starting in the next week in episode 6, and that we get the Tower of Change competition, which. Hold on, let me just pull this up. In that was what exactly happened in that comp? Oh, that was the instant insanity competition.
Yeah,
definitely won't be using that one again. It's too predictable. I'm just glad that no one actually knew the puzzle. But now you can just easily memorize it. And
was it Javen or I'm not sure if it was this comp or another one that I'm thinking of. I might be thinking of the pyramid, the Golden Pyramid, but. Was it Javen who said he had a roommate in college who had all these survivor puzzles?
It was Seb did, yeah.
I have a buddy of mine who says oh yeah, you got to find the piece with 3 greens and then you place it upside down and it's that he can solve it in 6 seconds. But when you tested this comp, how long did it take you?
We didn't test it. Or actually, I may have had a friend who tested it. I don't know if he completed it, but. It's just I got it from online. Just it's been done many times. Well, we figured since there was like 10 of them playing, someone was going to get it in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, and it really didn't take that long. I think maybe Trevor got it in less than 10 minutes.
Definitely less.
And I think from what he said, he kind of just stumbled on. I don't think he was like had ever done it before.
No, a lot of people know of the puzzle and know the main strategy is just to keep trying, and then maybe a few other things. I did meet one person who played this in Columbus Survivor who got it in a minute and a half because he knew like the algorithm of the puzzle. I was extremely shocked. Very impressed. It was Matthew Koa. He just knew the algorithm of that puzzle, and even if like it's a different puzzle, it can continue to happen. It's not like he memorized the order or anything. I saw him counting and then like flipping things. It was insane.
That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we definitely won't be using that puzzle again. It's too breakable. All you do is memorize it.
It's one of the few comps that if you know it's gonna be coming, you can study for it. But most of our other comps, there's no one solution.
Except for the Golden Pyramid, but we're not there yet. We're not there
not doing that one either. It was iconic.
Trevor does get his first comp win, I think here.
Yeah, our first major power shift too.
Oh yeah.
Well, he won the redemption in week 3, but
his second comp win, but a change up in the power.
And he puts up Chloe, Lydia, and Sebastian, and they play in the Tears from Above comp, which I think both Nate won it, but Noah said very openly that I'm throwing this competition. What for a storytelling perspective, I think Lydia starts kicking it into third gear because every single week we hear Lydia goes, "I'm throwing this comp. I don't need to win it. I don't need to win it. I don't need to win it." And she's like, "Okay, this is my time. I'm gonna start playing or not just start playing, but start like really competing in these competitions." And she pulls it out with Chloe getting the drag. It is a big moment. And how in the storytelling department did you go across trying to tell this story? And you also know that this is one of the big moments that is setting her up for a victory at the end of this.
As far as editing the episodes go, this is basically where Lydia's storyline really, as a winner, really begins, because she had thrown basically every comp until John went home, but with good reason, because she had understood early on in the game that the real power in Golden Gates is the vote, which means that if you want to be there to vote to protect your allies, you can't win competition. So she was really smart in doing that. But with John going, and then especially with Trevor in power, her alliance was basically under a lot of pressure. And with Trevor winning now, the combination of Charlie, John V, Lydia, Mark, that alliance was starting to go one at a time. So Lydia, I think, knew that this is where she really had to start. So I think I have some confessionals from her in there saying, now that John's gone, like, I need to start winning competitions, and this is where she wins her first one. And then that storyline kind of builds and builds for her till the end.
Part of the fun of the Golden Gates format is how the power can shift from left to right to left to right. And I was sort of taken aback in this, and I sort of understand the format better because of episode 6, in that we had Chloe and Charlie, who seemingly were on like opposite sides of the house, and they were the big targets, and that they were all this. And because it's a vote to save, we see someone who's been more in the middle than those two, Sebastian, get taken out with one less vote. It's a big moment. I just want to hear what your thoughts on this sort of spot was.
I would just say I think it's really interesting, because I think there's a diary room where Chloe says something to the effect of like, who can I drag that we both can stay against? And I think it's her and Charlie, right, in the pits.
Seb is in the pits still. Charlie gets dragged.
Oh, that's right. So she's talking to Seb, and Chloe and Seb hadn't really been working together, but they, at that point, basically kind of team up. And I think this is one of the few times we saw this happen, where it was like, who can we collectively decide to drag down that is going to get less votes than both of us? So I thought that was pretty interesting. And yeah, they go with Charlie at that point because Charlie was just coming off of a 3-week win streak, so a lot of people were threatened by him.
Oh, and then that's where the extra vote comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't predict that. It would have. Oh, so then I announced that Chloe is safe, and Seb's doing math. He's like, okay, it's 2-2. It's going to be a tie. What's going to happen? And then I say that Seb goes home, and he's like, what? So yeah, that was a little bit of shocking for him.
Well, if that extra vote wasn't in play, then it would have been a 2-2, and Trevor gets to pick, which I think in that scenario, Seb probably still goes home there, right?
I think so, because Trevor was trying to work with Charlie secretly as well. Unbeknownst to Javen, his number one, he wanted to be good with Charlie. I don't think he wanted Charlie to go home. But I think I definitely would have been Seb or maybe Chloe. I don't know. If he's in the chat, let us know, Trevor, what you would have done.
Well, no, Chloe was safe for sure. She had enough votes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. But if the tie was between Seb and Charlie, Seb would have gone home for sure.
Yeah. Well, it certainly helps Charlie's game not to be put in the tie there. So we get to the fight episode.
Yes, my favorite.
We're not there quite yet.
Okay.
Where we have Trevor says that Seb would have gone there.
Okay.
But we get the 21 flags, the whatever you want to call it, the Rising Tides competition of Twist of Fate. We have to pick 1, 2, or 3.
Yes.
Kyle, you're an LRG veteran. You plan these games. Do you know the winning strategy?
Oh, Jason and I played it this weekend, and I beat him. It was in the traders. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not going to announce the strategy just in case we use.
Can I talk about this game for a second?
Yeah,
go nuts, because if you're not, I will.
I love this. I just want to give you a little bit of history with this competition because this is one of the other ones that we brought over from Big Brother Columbus. So this game was actually dreamt up based off of a mini game in Mario Party 2. There's a mini game in Mario Party. Yeah, it's called Honeycomb Havoc, and there's just a line of fruit with honeycombs or beehives in it, and you can either take 1 fruit or 2, and if you get a beehive, you're knocked out. And so when we were coming up with games for Big Brother Columbus, we were like, oh, we got to do Honeycomb Havoc, but like not with fruit and beehives. So we kind of just came up with the idea of doing a spiral of marbles. And I think we did that on like 5 or 6 seasons of Big Brother Columbus. So when we needed a comp, we were like, well, we have this perfect board. It's kind of random, but there is a strategy. Like what we found out in this season is that a bunch of allies sitting next to each other can be really helpful. And it also depends on who goes first.
If we did it again, we would order the chairs with the Twist of Fate or the Fishbowl of Fate for sure.
Yeah.
But we see Javen win it, and I don't know necessarily if he played perfectly. I'd have to rewatch the tapes because we both. I won't say for future contestants. I'd hate to ruin perfectly good comp, but there's the winning strategy there. And
yeah, Javen did a lot of the eliminating, and then it was him and Trevor at the end, and Trevor was like, "I just won, Omni. You can win it this time," and they worked together.
Yeah. And then Javen wins his first comp after being in the pits for 4 straight, not straight, actually, they weren't in episode 6, but they were on the block 5 episodes in a row at some point, 5 rounds in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And they put up Chloe, JoJo, and Lydia, which I'm somewhat surprised by, or not, sorry, never mind, it was Charlie. Never mind, I'm no longer surprised. I thought they were friends.
Yeah, not Chloe.
He was gunning for Charlie at that point.
Chloe gets taken down later, or dragged down later and taken out, but that's a different story. That's not exactly Javen's fault, I wouldn't say.
No, he was upstairs.
We get to another very fun competition of buzzwords, and a lot of people buzzed in with wrong answers too. But how many rounds did you have prepared? Because I know you prepared for every.
I did the math. If every single person got two 2 points, except, and then +1 for the last person to get. So there was like, it took a while to make it. It was like,
You had a ton of these, and we only ended up using a handful.
Was it a slideshow? Was it a video? How did you add
It was
the
just
letters?
a Google Slides, Google PowerPoint.
Very fun. And so Noah wins it for the power protection, which, did he need it? Probably not. I don't know if that's necessarily the greatest move for him, but I don't think anyone was looking at Noah as a threat or someone that they need to take out anytime soon at all.
It could be good to win a few competitions just for your resume and a change of pace, but I mean, he didn't need it.
He was really worried about being a floater at that point. I think he mentions that a few times in the DR, that he hadn't done really anything since he came back. So I think he was just trying to get a comp win on his resume.
When I eventually got to meet John V in person, and I was talking to him about Golden Gates, and the very first question, and the only question I asked him was, is Noah as much of a villain as he comes off on the screen? Because the way that he's edited, and this isn't your fault or his fault or anyone at all, but the way that it comes off on screen, I'm like, oh my gosh, how can these guys stand to live in the same house as him? He seems like someone, like, every single confessional, he's like, I'm a villain. I want to take these people out by the teeth. These people, like, they don't know it's time for badass Noah. I'm like, how do you, like, it seems like someone, I don't know what's going on. And then I see the clips of the house going on, and he's in the house and he's just kind of standing there in the corner, and it doesn't look like everything he's saying in confessional. It seems like it's a lot of talk. And now, Noah, if you're watching this, call me out on Facebook, call me out on Twitter, start beef with me. But this is just how I've seen it in the edit. And I was curious because I asked John V, I was like, is he actually as villainous as he comes off on screen? And I got to story. I'm not going to share what John V said, but in summary, it was like, yeah, he kind of is, but that was more so after the game that he was a villain than more so in it, because John V wasn't in that long with Noah. I think it was like 2 rounds.
He knew how to really lay it on thick in the diary room, in a good way, because a lot of people who've watched the show obviously have said the same thing. But like you said, him on the ground with the players, that wasn't really coming out. But in the diary room, he was, given the one-liners, saying this, that. He was the king of everything. So it really comes through in the edit. But I don't think they really saw that side of him until after the game was over.
And I think he was very chaotic in the DR and with his votes, but he made a lot of deals with people, and then wasn't keeping them in the DR. So a lot of it was for the viewers, I think.
Well, I don't know. We'll see if there's ever a returnee season, if Noah meets a similar fate but without a battle back. But this is the round that JoJo actually wins the drag and drags down Chloe, and we finally see, and not in a good way, because I really think Chloe's a great character, but we see Chloe get taken out of the game with only 1 vote. And it's Charlie and JoJo, which to me, we know that Charlie and JoJo were working together. I was somewhat shocked in that we didn't get more votes, because who was it saving this round? We had the Pitts players, and then we had Nate saving and Dresden and Trevor saving. I was somewhat shocked because, we didn't hear much from Dresden throughout a lot of the game, but I was shocked that Dresden was sort of with that power structure and kept JoJo safe in this round.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the stats.
I totally skipped over the fight. We'll get back to that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from what I recall, Chloe had sort of joined up with like the Lydia, John V, Charlie side of the house at that point, and JoJo was really close with Nate. So I think that JoJo was really close with Nate, and then they were working with Trevor and Dresden.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot. Maybe I want to talk about Dresden more, because I think he's really fun as a character, and there were some gameplay moves that may have not come across on camera. Did you see any parts of his gameplay that didn't necessarily make the edit?
He was definitely very, very likable.
I think that was the whole crux of his game, was that he wanted to be a social player, and he really was. Like he was just really, really good friends with everybody on the, like, or became really good friends with people on the cast. He was non-confrontational. He wasn't winning omnis or drag powers to make enemies. So I think he was just, kind of there and socializing with everybody, and he was never a threat, really. So I think that's part of why he made it so far, is that he was just sort of working with everybody. It was very fluid game.
Maybe the game that Noah wanted to play. I'll stop taking shots at Noah eventually.
The game Noah said he was playing, because he's like, I've tried to play an honest, nice, friendship making game. And I'm like, where?
So we get the fight with Noah, and just let me correct me if I'm wrong, but is Bella mad at Noah because Noah made deals and then broke them?
It started out being mad at everybody because there was 5 or so people. She got no votes to save, so 5 or so people were mad, or she was mad at them because multiple people said, I will save you, or you're not going home, or something along the lines. And then she went home, and this was her first game. She didn't realize that everyone could be lying to her face. So she started being mad at Javen. Javen was like, I understand, I'm sorry. And then you can explain the rest.
Yeah, I think Becca was just really hurt. Like you said, it was her first game. 5 people said they would keep her, and nobody did. It was the only 0 vote rapture we had in the entire game. So she was really, really hurt. And her own words, she had been drinking a little bit at that point, so she was kind of just calling people out, like, hey, you lied to me, and almost everybody owned up to it and was like, you're right, I'm sorry. But Noah was the only one that kind of fought back and said, like, what do I owe you? Like, I don't know you. People lie in these games, get over it. And then that just set her off, and then they went to blows for I solid 10 minutes. Like, that episode is compressed, or that fight is compressed into like 2 or 3 minutes in the episode, but that was like a 10-minute back and forth.
There was enough time for May to go make popcorn, bring it upstairs, and then that whole scene happened. And like, people downstairs are listening. Like, we did not allow them to go up the stairs at all, but they could hear a lot of it. And just the whole house is just focusing on this fight, even if they can't watch it. And it's just drama because I think they just wanted to get some steam out.
I'm sorry. I think it was a great point for it to happen in the game, because it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole season.
And I don't know if it was intentional or it's a joke in editing, but you did put Becca's name, or you did put their name as Becca, at least in one confessional.
Bella, yeah. Yeah, that was sort of the running joke, was that Sedona had called her Bella in episode 1, and then Becca herself refers to herself as, well, now I guess I'm Dark Becca, and we'll name her Bella.
And then we have our own little anybody want cake moment where Sedona asks if we think the Airbnb has, what game was it?
She says Cards Against Humanity. Yeah.
Just out of the blue, she was just like, I'm done with this fighting.
And we have the infamous popcorn confessional.
Oh, yes.
I'll slightly correct you, and Trevor got to it before me, but I think it was the only 0 vote up to this point, because we later see Noah and Nate got no votes to save.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. End game. Yeah.
It was either a tie or someone gets 0. Good job.
All right. Episode 8. And where we get the ping pong po, which I think Lydia said was one of the longer ones. And we get the tournament. Everyone's reliving their glory days, which are just kind of my days, because I'm. But a lot of really fun confessional, a lot of really fun editing done there. And Nate pulls out the victory, and we sort of see this is the beginning of what I think. If you read really deep into the edit, you can probably see Nate is one of the contenders and one of the people who has been set up really well and is strong and has a lot of friends in the jury. And this is sort of the part where we're building up that Nate is going to be the one to beat going into the finale. And he wins the final, the episode 8, the final 6 or whatever it is competition, and puts up Charlie, Noah, and Lydia. and they all play in the Golden Pyramid, which was one of the 3D printed or one of the I don't know
ping pong balls
Well,
that I glued together.
Okay, I was gonna ask what those were because I forgot. Oh yeah, I see the fun graphic. Was it Javen who said that he had it in 2 seconds? No, he built the wrong one. He built a straight triangle.
Yeah,
a prism.
He built a prism and was like, I've done it. And we're like,
I was impressed.
It's not a pyramid, but
the fun dichotomy of this episode is everyone was so like energetic and loud for this Omni competition trial, and then we get to the puzzle and people are dead tired and like some are drunk, I don't know, but like they are not having it at this puzzle.
It's the biggest shift in energy in the whole season. Everyone having a great time, laughing, cheering during Ping Pong Po, and just morose, upset, working on this puzzle, hating every second of it. I don't think it comes through as much in the edit, but they were so dead and tired working on that puzzle. It was so late at night at that point.
It's right when everyone is starting to get tired drunk instead of energetic drunk.
Yep, exactly.
Or so I've heard. I don't know anything about that.
Yes,
but
same.
I'm gonna get kicked off a couple game shows. But Javen wins the Golden Pyramid, which was a big moment in Javen's story. And then we get Noah again getting a second comp win in a row ish. And Lydia decides to drag down, Lydia decides to drag down JoJo, which ultimately seals JoJo's fate. In that Lydia was the one with the most votes to save there. And I think
this is a really big round because this is where the whole deal is cut between Trevor and Lydia, because this is the episode where Nate, as the Omni, basically makes everybody who he doesn't put in the pits promise that whoever gets dragged down into the pits, they're all going to vote to save that person, so that no matter what, one of those 3 people in the pits goes home. But then after Lydia wins the drag down, one of the things that was really fun about that night was that we wanted to end it with the drag, or with the competition, but not have the drag until the morning, so that they had all night to basically like figure out, well, who's Lydia going to drag? And sort of as we had hoped, Trevor and Lydia meet up really late, and he basically makes a deal with her, because when Nate made that deal with them that vote for whoever gets dragged so they're safe, he kind of forgot that they were going to lose one of those numbers when they win the power of protection. So they won't actually have the votes to save that person. It would be a tie. And they were all really scared of being in a tie. And Trevor didn't want to get dragged down and potentially be in a tie, because it was a double eviction that round, or double rapture that round. 2 people were going home. So to not get dragged, Trevor cut that deal with Lydia. That was like, if you don't drag me, then we'll actually save you instead of whoever you drag.
Yeah, I completely forgot that was. I mean, that there was this episode. What a really fun. I think I texted Kyle. I was like, "Oh my gosh, Trevor is like confessional gold," and that you had a lot of fun, Jason, and that you put around all the graphics and you were like trying to do it, and he would be like, "Oh yeah, but now since Noah's won the power of protection, and that vote, and Javen won, then that vote doesn't count. So the only 2 votes, and they're going to save each other."
I had that scene edited, and I showed one of my roommates, and I was like, "Does this make sense to you?" And they watched it, and they were like, "No, not really. Like, he totally lost me." So I was like, "All right, I got to do a graph. I got to do a graph, or else it won't make sense."
I think what Kyle said to me in this, because I was talking about how great the confessionals were, Kyle goes, "Yeah, there were times where we had to kick Trevor out of the confessional room, the diary room, because he would keep talking, and it was a lot of good stuff." But
that's what I heard, yeah.
But his
Trevor definitely rambled a lot, but not rambled in a bad way. But he gave such detailed information that he was probably in there the longest. But the plus of that is that I have anything I could ever need for an episode. I've got Trevor saying it.
One last interesting thing about this week. So at the end of the night, the people who won competitions were allowed to talk to the jury about game. And then we did it like mentally separated. Yeah, it was the end of the night and people had to share rooms, but we were like, no talking strategy unless you're in the same mental space. Like if you won a competition or you were a jury member, you could talk game. Or if you didn't win a competition and you're going to vote, you can talk game. So John V and Javen were actually talking for a while that night. And John V was actually like giving Javen a pep talk. Javen's like a newbie. He never played a game. He's not there for strategy necessarily. He's not a huge fan of a ton of reality shows, but John V like has a lot of experience. And I thought that maybe John V might have been upset about like, getting dragged and like not backstabbed, but like eliminated partly due to Javen's hand. But it was really cool like seeing like a vet of games talk to like a newbie, and it seemed like really like motivate him for the Sunday last day of the game. It was really cool to see that. There's like a tiny clip of them talking in the montage of the night that was edited in, but it was really cool to see like a jury member talking to someone who is up in the gates
and giving them like advice on. That was cool.
Definitely fun for someone who opened up the season by saying, "This is my 12th game. I'm ready to kick butt." But we do, unfortunately, we see JoJo and Charlie go home here. So Charlie's streak is over, and the door is wide open for who's going to win comps. And that we see Nate win the Rainbow Rings comp, which could be similar to the Ball Bashers one that he threw earlier on. And he puts up basically the whole house at that point.
Yeah, at that point,
6 people left.
6 people left, 3 in the pits. One of them is going, only 2 people that are not in the pits, but that means that no matter what, one of those 2 people is going to get dragged. So I don't think there was as much thought into the picks this time, just because both parties have a chance to save themselves.
I think I was messaging Kyle because I was like, what's going to happen? Like just watch and figure it out. I was making predictions. I'm like, there's going to be hit the road comp. There's going to be all these different twists. There's going to be like 3 comps and they're going to have to battle it out. And the Omni's going to get soul vote to eliminate. I think I was wrong on a lot of them, but
I think you had like half of it right.
Yeah.
They were very good predictions for sure.
And as you said, that's what it was for season 1. So maybe if you want to take down my notes.
Yeah, but this is the start of having only the pits voting, which I think is really interesting because naturally, if you have any strategy, you're just going to go to like, you're either going to know that you have a number 1 ally, or if you're not sure, maybe go to both people. All you need is 1 vote, and then you at least tie it.
One of the things I love about the late game for Golden Gates is both episode 8 and 9, the only people voting are the 3 people in the pit. So you have this weird triangle of trust and deceit where you want at least one person to vote for you, but then you have to vote for one of the other 2 people. So it's like, do I put my vote on someone? But then, like, if I do that, does it make me tie with them? So do I throw my vote on someone else? Because maybe then that person will get 0 and I beat them. It's really tough.
If you think you know what a tie does, then you could even almost force a tie and then hope that works out. But it ended up working out both rounds that Dresden was the deciding vote, most likely. Every single one of those 4 people thought Dresden was going to keep them because he had some sort of relationship with them, which goes to his social game. That they all 4 were like, oh, we're voting for Dresden to save for sure. And then it kind of might have gotten 2, not enemies, but 2 maybe slightly upset jurors towards him for that.
Well, it almost becomes the strategy of the circle on where you want to vote for the person you think is least likely to stay. That way you can almost force a tie. And I mean, if you feel like your odds are better there, then you can presume what's going to happen. But I mean, if we've learned anything from this podcast, it's not to expect the Omni. It's one of many options. Maybe we're going to go to fire making next season. We're getting close to the finale, in that we have the well, we have Noah gets sent home in the 2-0 vote, and they were very upset at Dresden, which we just touched upon. And then it's the glorious gratuity comp, which one was that? Sorry, I'm just gonna.
So the comp before that was the weather comp, which is like definitely one of the most fun comps, I think.
Yeah, the Holy Hell News.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That Trevor won, and it was a tie for a second. Not that this was the 1 week that the ties didn't matter,
Right.
But I think we see both Noah and Javen. Like I think Noah got like 3 points and then completely blanked on everything else.
Yeah, no, Javen started off very hot and then didn't get any in the middle, and then.
Yeah, this was a really fun one to watch and edit. This is one that we definitely would like to revisit.
Because I would do the math while I'm watching the episode. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait. So do they have a chance still? Could they win? And then like Trevor just got like 6 in a row. I was like, okay, it's over.
Yeah, you only missed like 1 or 2.
That competition is so hard in my mind because when you listen to the script the first time, you have no idea what words are going to be blanked out. So you kind of have to just memorize the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't prepare for this challenge except, unless you're just going to memorize paragraphs randomly.
And it was a very long news report. And considering some people got almost all of them right, I was very impressed.
Mm-hmm. But both Lydia and Trevor are safe. And then Noah does go home with no votes. I think Noah voted for
Dresden, yeah.
Yeah. And then Dresden was the last vote, which I was, from like a social standpoint, I understand saving Javen, but I was like, Javen's the biggest threat. He's been in the pits every single round. He's been this huge person. But also, if I'm Dresden, I might be thinking like, hey, if I keep these big threats in, I have a ticket to the finale.
I think it was also a testament to Javen's social game. Like they got really close that weekend, and I don't think Dresden wanted to break that, even though I think he mentions Dresden at least knew slightly of Noah before this game. But like Javen's bond with him in this season might have helped him over some people who knew of each other in the live reality game community.
There were pregame relationships? Oh my gosh. In an LRG, that might be unheard of.
Definitely.
One thing I'll point out is that in the Holy Hell News, and I loved it because I noticed it in a lot of the confessionals in the intro, and even when they sitting in the chair, Lydia did this sort of sway side to side.
Lydia is the swaying back and forth queen.
But the news report was a great moment for that. So we're going into the finale, and we get the glorious gratuity, which is the LRG classic rollerball. I think it's called in the Surviving Universe. And that they had a couple. They had like ping pong balls. They had mini wiffle balls. They had marbles at some point.
We didn't expect that comp to go as long as it did. We kept adding balls, and they were not dropping. So at one point in the competition, I cut from like they went from 2 to 4 to 5 to 6 because no one dropped. So there was no point in just showing them still standing there all that time. Yeah. But yeah, nobody left nobody got out until they had to go to 6, and then until they had to raise their arm completely straight. That was when we finally had our first drop.
It was very impressive.
I always find it interesting in Survivor LRGs, but I guess I'm somewhat more interested in your LRG, in that why do the contestants always feel the need to go shirtless during competition? Because we saw this with John V holding the blocks, but there's no strategic, like what
the fabric, I don't know. It's less hot. They didn't want to overheat.
But very, very fun competition that Javen does take home. And I'm like, okay, Javen's in the finals. And I think this is the round. I mean, you're going to have to hope that Nate doesn't win the round here. And he doesn't do too well in I think it was called, Trials and Tribulations in Order of Events. But what we agreed it's Trials and Tribulations.
It's right? Trials and Tribulations, but I think some people refer to it as Order of Events in the diary room. But yeah, that was where it really came down to, if they want any chance of getting Nate out, that Nate couldn't win this one. And they were all on board. Like Nate, Dresden, Lydia, Javen, they all knew that Nate had to go, or else he was gonna win the entire game.
I think it was called Order of Events on the slideshow too, which is why I was like trying to figure it out. But Nate does not get too hot of a score. I'm trying to see if I can.
No, he got 4th place out of 4.
Yeah, 6 minutes. Oh, he got 5 out of 10, and I think the best one was 10 out of 10.
Yeah, Trevor.
With so as someone, I don't know how well you did in Columbus Big Brother, but I know you got to the traders. How well do you tend to do in these trivia comps where they ask you to name and remember these facts?
So this was inspired by my Final Four veto win in Big Brother Columbus. It's basically the same competition. So this is my style of competition, yeah.
Yeah, we always, in every season of Big Brother Columbus, we always did, I think it was the Final Four veto, we did this competition because I think it's important to test the players' knowledge of everything that happened in the game. And I think quizzing them on competitions is a really good way to do that. So yeah, in Kyle's season, we did it with tweets, and he bodied that competition. So we figured this was sort of the equivalent of a Final Four veto, like the final safety comp going in like in the penultimate round. So we wanted to sort of mirror that.
Yeah. My favorite Big Brother comp of all time is the Final Four veto of Big Brother 16, where they had the web of lies and they had to put all the different the players in the order of the clues. So very, very reminiscent here.
Yeah. I would like a more intricate quiz game, but it's so difficult to come up with literally last second. So the problem
with doing it with game trivia about like who went out and who went home is that you would have to design the questions as you went through the game, and that's so much harder to do than to be able to just do it comp orders, because you can do that prior to the game because that's not going to change at all. But to ask questions about like in round 3 which person got 2 votes but stayed, you'd have to be tallying all that as you go and then make all of the questions as you go as well, which is just a lot more work in the moment.
This season, the only last minute comp we did was the Halo Chop. I had to tally up everyone's quizzes. You can see me in the background, like quickly tallying everybody's. It was a lot of work.
Well, you got sort of lucky here. I want to ask, was there a backup if Noah made it to that Trials and Tribulation? Because he wasn't in the game for 4 or 6 of the
no, we talked about that, and we've just figured that everyone is at every Omni trial except for if you want to buy back. But if you want to buy back, you've been eliminated. And if you didn't at least talk to people about the Omni trial, like if I was eliminated first, I would just be like, oh, like what did you do this week? What were the challenges? So that was just, he won a second life in this game. So a tiny bit of a disadvantage would be fine, I think.
Okay. No, I mean, that's fair. But it did not occur. And we finally see Nate go home. And Lydia says in the comments here that they weren't sure if Nate was actually going to go home here. But the plan ended up going through. Good for Lydia. And we get the classic Big Brother of the last laugh or Plates of Fate or whatever it's called. And last laugh in this game. And that they have to name special facts about people. And I love that some of them were game related. And it was like, oh my gosh, so what color shirt or what are my eyes? And it's like, okay, you can't exactly figure that out. And then we get to Sedona, and Sedona goes, what instrument did I play? And from a perspective of you have to like manage the jury and all that, I'd be like, oh my gosh, if I don't even know what Sedona does as a job, it must be brutal.
I think our intent with this comp was to bring the whole concept of the Golden Gates full circle, in that, you know, you got to mingle with the jury if you were in the Golden Gates. In this game, you get to talk to them. So like we let them come up with their own question, hoping they would draw from things they had conversations about while they were up in the gates, so that, you know, people who were in the gates did have a bit of an advantage because they got to know those people because they're still a part of the game. I think so. Yeah. Some of the questions were about that. Some of the questions were completely random, but I think it's definitely a good concept that we might tweak.
Yeah, it's definitely tweakable. It wasn't my absolute favorite competition, But like I do like the idea still. It makes a lot of sense. Just it didn't work out the exact way we came up with, but I mean, in the scheme of it all, it wasn't like a game-ending challenge anyway, because
I was actually kind of glad it came down to a tie, because then at least the tiebreaker kind of determined that someone won based on, something they could actually figure out, rather than it just be based on questions they may not have known the answer to.
Well, if Lydia's in the chat, I'm interested to hear who Lydia would have taken to the end, so we can play out that scenario.
That's a good question. I think
very good question. Yeah. I think she is in the chat.
Very fun comp, nonetheless. I want to ask what happened with those confessionals, because we see, like, I think JoJo's and Nate's were done in the diary room, and then some of them were done in like a different spot on the green screen.
We had to get those so fast because we gathered those questions the final morning, and I think that for Nate's, I think Sheila Devil May went up to the Golden Gates to just grab the questions from people, but Nate had just been raptured, or Nate hadn't been raptured yet, and we needed to get his question. So I think we did his in the diary room, because at that point I think somebody was maybe already up in the gates, or there was too many people up in the gates.
3 people got eliminated that day, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So those ones are the ones that were like last, I think.
And then Charlie's, we just had to do his over again because we didn't get a good take the first time, so we pulled him into the diary room for the second one. If we did this again, Kyle and I already talked about this, that we might, once somebody gets eliminated while they're still in the diary room, just record it in there, so that they all kind of have like a consistent.
Yeah, and then it's not like they know who they're asking their questions to.
Right.
Yeah, that would be interesting, because it's just the second you get eliminated, you're like, what would your question be?
Yeah, when I make my question a specific conversation that I had with one finalist who I really like.
Well, that's exactly what we talked about, is that would we allow that to be a thing? Because if this comes down to managing jury relationships, then why not basically put more power in the jury's hands to determine who wins this competition, right? And so if the jury wants to ask a question that they were only one of the people left in the game was still there for, we were kind of okay with that, because this really was about the jury kind of finally having some influence. That being said, it does make it less fair for everybody, but I think we kind of waffled with like, maybe that's okay for this. But
yeah, it was an interesting, like, what's it called, like, test of the challenge, because in that case it's almost like a jury vote. Like, if the jury likes you more, you're more likely to win this challenge and then potentially win the game. So I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. We definitely need to talk about it more. But I mean, that's not what ended up happening at all. But it's an interesting thought.
We see Trevor pull out the win in this competition, and he takes Dresden to the end, which I think is the correct move for his game. And then we get this scene. I think we talked about it a little earlier. I forget if it was on the pod or not. It's been 2 hours. But the whole thing is that Mira and the group and Becca and Bella, whatever, starts talking about how how did you expect us to win if you take out our favorite person? And both in the diary room and in person, Trevor is basically WTF. Like, how did you expect? Like, what do you want me to do? Keep him in?
The funny thing is, Trevor didn't do anything except win himself safety. The only person who's fully responsible, Lydia and Dresden were in that vote that Nate was eliminated. Trevor didn't eliminate him. But Trevor was taking the heat. Maybe it's just because Trevor was being more talkative up there. Maybe they were talking slightly to Dresden.
Trevor wasn't even involved in the vote to get Nate out because he had won. Trevor won the safety competition that round. So I think that was really interesting to me. And what part of the reason I'm glad it's in the episode is because, once again, that kind of proves how the gates having such an influence on the game impacts the game. And one of the things that I think isn't shown as much in the episode, but is really, really important, is that the reason they knew that they had to get Nate out wasn't just because he started winning competitions. It was because every time Nate did win a competition and go up to the Golden Gates, all of the jury would like cheer and they would be like, yes, Nate's safe. And then when they would go back down, when the people in the gates would go back down into the game, everybody in the jury would cheer like, go Nate, you got this, baby, like take it home. So that's what clued them in that Nate had to go, because the jury was reacting so positively every time he was up there. So the jury kind of shot themselves in the foot by making it so obvious they wanted Nate to win that everyone else was like, well, now we got to get Nate out. But that's, again, by design, why having the jury interact with everybody is so vital. And I'm wondering for season 2, if the jury does have a favorite, if they're a lot more close-lipped about it.
And I think something about having the jury being able to talk a lot on camera is that if they are mad or happy about something, they can do something. And if it's good enough, it could be in the episode. So I'm excited to see season 2, like how wild, like we're going to have to monitor it, make sure, as long as it's all good fun, all game fairness, they can say or do whatever. Of course, if that gets out of hand, then they could get kicked out of the game. So like all fully fun drama is acceptable. We're also thinking of, if it doesn't fit into the episode, potentially doing like a mini 5 to 10 minute episode each week for what goes on in the gates. We did wish there was more of that this season. It just, we didn't have enough camera people. It was season 1. We didn't know what was happening the whole time. But yeah, that's definitely something that season 2, I think, will take more of effect in the episodes or in content.
I look forward to that, definitely. So we start off with the trivia part of the duel, and it doesn't seem, I think Javen gets the lead here, 20 seconds or so.
Javen gets the lead because Lydia answers so many questions incorrectly that the points keep, the advantage keeps sticking his way.
There was 10 questions. I think 6 or 7 were answered incorrectly. 1 was skipped. I think there was 2 answers that were correct, I believe. It was iconic.
I somewhat expected Javen to win this, because he talked before about how many like puzzles he'd done and how his roommate in college was a huge puzzle guy, and he won the previous puzzle after doing it wrong, of course.
He had won the pyramid, yeah.
I think he was surprised with himself for winning the pyramid.
Yeah, I think he kind of stumbled.
After Lydia wins it, I mean, even before Lydia won it, I think it was kind of set that whoever wins the competition between Javen and Lydia wins the season. How do you think, as like someone who's in the game, and maybe I'll talk to Trevor more about this, but do you think it was very obvious going into the finale, or do you think it was still a lot of the votes up in the air?
I'll be honest, at being solely on production and not being in the game, I did not know that was the case at the time. I knew Javen had a really good chance at winning, but I had just assumed, based on sort of being an outsider, that Trevor was the one to beat. I actually wasn't even, I don't think I was there when the jury was yelling at Trevor in the diary room. I think I was recording diaries at that point. So I was convinced Trevor was going to win. And then it wasn't until like the round table and Javen having gone that I started to realize that, you know, Lydia had this kind of like underdog story coming from being the last of an alliance and then surviving repeatedly, that she sort of became the one to beat.
Yeah, you didn't really know Lydia's full story because the DRs didn't happen with her until after the game.
So after,
so
I almost all of
perspective for everything.
Exactly. And so I most of Lydia's diary rooms for the entire second half of the game were done after the game was over. So I hadn't talked to her in like 24 hours. So I did not see much about Lydia's game till afterwards. And then when I recorded all of it, I was like, oh my God, you're a genius.
I didn't do any of the confessionals for anything throughout the season. So I don't remember if this was before or after, but when I heard everyone like literally raising their voice at Dresden and Trevor, it was pretty clear to everyone downstairs that whoever won the duel was probably going to win the game. But I don't remember what I thought before I heard people like getting mad at them. I think they all definitely have very different games. Trevor is the more like, he seemed to control a lot of things, especially like DR wise, might not have been as public. Lydia had like a really good strategy of she was where she wanted to be every single week. She was either upstairs when she wanted to be or downstairs when she wanted to be, and she had those relationships that were very solid. Dresden had a really, really good social game. Like, never really was a target. Never had to win. And especially those last 2 weeks when he was in the pits, I was so impressed that all 4 people saved him, and he got to decide those last 2 things. And then Javen, underdog, because he's a newbie. He knew absolutely nobody. He isn't the best strategic player, but he won so many challenges and is super likable. Like, as you could see in his DRs, especially, like, he's so fun to be around. And just all 4 of them had such a good game. And like,
and Nate.
Yeah. Oh, Nate, of course.
Yeah, if Nate would have been there, he would have won.
All 5 of them could have easily won. And I think like Lydia's explanation, like, I was tearing up watching. I think it definitely helped knowing that the jury might have been mad at the other people. I think that could help with confidence if I felt like I had a good chance. But like, no, Lydia's speeches were amazing, and like all of them deserved it, but I think the speeches definitely swayed a lot of votes and caused like the winner to peak at the end of the game.
Lydia said, in my opinion, the most important and I guess I'll just say iconic line that I think made her the perfect winner to me, which was at some point she said that in Golden Gates, you know, you lose power if you win competitions, because in this game, the real power is the vote. And that is such a perfect summary of how she played, because she wasn't winning the competitions. She was intentionally doing what she had to do to make sure she was there to vote, because that is the real power in Golden Gates. You learn that once you've played the season, is that you might think Omni's power, you might think that winning power protection is power. All that is safety. The real power is not winning and then being down there to control the vote. And Lydia clocking that was what made me like, she got it. She understood the assignment.
That's her. Something that
I voted more than anyone else. Dresden.
Something I thought was really interesting was one of the biggest moves of the game is the whole Trevor Lydia at the double drag. That could be easily perceived as both of their moves, but Lydia mentioned it first. Lydia like took credit for it at the end, and like, if I heard that, I would be like, wow, that's a giant move. If Trevor said that first, then I would be like, wow, Trevor, that was a really good move. It was both of their moves. Like, don't know, it might be 50-50, might be 60-40, I don't know exactly, but Lydia claimed it, and that's fair game at the end. And that was a big, she got asked a question that was the response to, and it was a really good answer.
Yeah, it was a great finale. A lot of great moments, ups and downs, a lot of fun storylines, takeaways from the season. Was there anything else, production-wise, player-wise, gameplay-wise, that I didn't point out that you didn't get to talk about that you think would be good to talk about on a production podcast?
Honestly, I couldn't be happier with how everything turned out. Having done 6 seasons of Big Brother Columbus prior to this, there's always some major thing that we missed or didn't get, or I wish we would have caught on camera. And I think that we literally caught pretty much everything to tell the story that ended up needing to be told. You know, I kept getting scared, like, oh, this is going to be the episode where somebody doesn't mention something and it's going to be so important. And we had some close calls, but we ended up, I think, being able to tell the entire story of what happened to the best of our ability. And I always remind people, especially people who played, where it's like, well, why didn't you include this? Like, I always try to remind people the entire season, all 10 episodes, was filmed in a 48-hour weekend. This wasn't a 5-day game. This whole game was filmed in 48 hours. And to be able to get the 10 episodes of content that tell the entire story of everything without any glaring holes, I think is a huge accomplishment to our production team's ability to sort of make sure we caught it all and put it all together.
Well, I absolutely agree that it was a fantastic season. I look forward to seeing what both of you put on in the future. Jason, do you have any projects, any social media, anything that you want to shout out here on the podcast?
Yeah, so I would just say like Golden Gates is where, you know, my LRG brain will be for the future. I think Kyle and I are really excited to get a second season in the bag. I would just say if anybody wants anything to watch prior to that, to check out season 6 and 7 of our previous show, Big Brother Columbus. It's also on YouTube. Kyle played in season 6, and that's a really good season. And then Sheila Devil May played in season 7. So you'll see some recognizable faces. And then lastly, you know, I'm a musician. I did the theme song for the show. So check out my music under the alias Tosca Bear.
Yeah. Jace, I love meeting people at bars and be like, oh my God, did you know my friend makes his own music? I feel like I'm one of his biggest promoters. So definitely check out Tosca Bear. He has 2 amazing albums. I don't know, maybe the third might be coming up soon between these seasons. I don't know. It's very fun music. And yeah, he helped like not only edit it, but he also composed a lot of stuff for this show. Other things I'd shout out is, I mean, this is my main creative thing, Golden Gates, but I also do love supporting Ohio area LRGs. Our good friend John Wells, who just hosted the Columbus Traders that Jason and I made Final 2 at. He also hosts Columbus Survivor. I'll be live streaming that on Instagram for him, and that's in August. And then Tim, our other friend, who does the Mole Ohio. He does episodes on YouTube, so check those out if you like the Mole. And season 4 or 5 is gonna be filmed probably in a few months. Any other Columbus LRGs? I mean,
we had Matt in the chat earlier from the Mole Ohio.
Oh yeah, Tim. Yeah, those are the ones that I help out with or have played. I also played another kind of Big Brother game, but I don't help out with production on that one. But yeah, like John Wells is basically like kind of our third little host in our group. We always see each other at the bar and we're like, oh, look at these hosts.
I want to really quick piggyback off that to just say that I think John Wells offers such an awesome opportunity for LRG players in Columbus, because while we like to do things like Golden Gates, where it's like we're going to spend a whole year planning and editing and doing this big thing, that takes so much work that you can only really do it once a year or at least once every couple years. But John gets like 4 or 5 different games going a year, which creates so many opportunities for people in the greater Columbus area to play games like this. He just said it in the chat, but I'm going to repeat it. I consider Ohio or Columbus to be like the LRG capital of the world. We have so many games here. So, and that's really thankful to John, because he just finished Traders and he's got Survivor Columbus coming up in just a few months. So definitely follow him and see what games he puts on, because we just played one and it was incredible.
Mm-hmm. And then Ben Wood also is, I don't know of a Columbus one he's hosted yet, but he definitely will probably be hosting a Columbus LRG soon. He's always on production for like all of these games as well. He's either playing or production, just like me. Like he's always supporting all of us, and I can't wait to support him when he hosts one of his.
So it sounds like a lot of great stuff. I have my own stuff. I do Survivor Bloomington, I do Survivor at IU. I'm going on Surviving Bloomington eventually. to the
Nice.
two people who that's relevant to, say hi. But I very exciting stuff. We're currently editing our first season, finishing up. Hopefully that
Hell
wants
yeah.
to be done soon.
Is
And
this
then
the season that John V's in?
Hold on, my camera broke. The season that's currently airing does not have John V. John V's on season 2, which already filmed, and we're working in production for season 3 right now, which
Nice.
should be filming sometime in November. But that's located Bloomington, Indiana. Not exactly the capital, but it's close to Ohio, so like call us a sister city.
Yeah.
Keep an eye out for that. Follow our socials, LRG Indiana on Instagram. Just look up Survivor at IU on YouTube and should be able to find our stuff. Thank you again both so much for coming out here. It has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Maybe I'll do some exit interviews for season 2. I know I got some stuff trying to line up with Trevor and Lydia and some of the other people from your season 1 cast. So look forward to that on the podcast. We do weekly updates for Survivor 45. Join us for our finale recap this Wednesday at, I believe, when's the episode finish? Around 10:30. So keep an eye out for that. I've been Sam. Thank you so much. And stay safe out there.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Sam. Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.